Hello friends, JTZ here, bringing you another Dota 2 video on behalf of Dota Alchemy, and in this video I'm going to be covering the top 3 mid-heroes in patch 7.20E. And this video is actually sponsored by Skinbaron, so shout out to those guys. Thank you so much for supporting us. Thanks to our Patreon boys for supporting us as well. As you guys know, we're trying to go totally free and monetize in like traditional YouTube ways instead of doing some subscription models, so thanks so much to Skinbaron for supporting us, and let's get into the video. Number 3, Drow Ranger. When 7.20 was released, Drow was quite possibly the worst hero in the game, but as per Ice Frog's tradition, he proceeded to buff her into oblivion. People still thought that it was pretty awful, despite the buffs, until Thompson played it mid on stream. Then shit kind of hit the fan. Everybody was playing Drow mid. Instead of being this like AFK jungling, buff your team in the early and late game carry hero, Drow has become this flash farming, skirmish around item timing mid hero. The typical build usually involves a lot of early game items like Wraith Bands, Sange and Yasha, Dragonlance, Blink Dagger, Shadowblade, basically stat items and mobility items. The playstyle is that you essentially abuse the fact that marksmanship can one-hit Ancients, you can stack Ancients, and use them to flash farm an item advantage. And once you feel like you're strong, you start running at towers with your team and you try to take fights, abusing the fact that you of course also get that 120 damage bonus procs from the marksmanship as well on heroes. You basically want to play Drow like it's a Shadow Fiend or a Templar Assassin, balancing between the fact that you can farm incredibly quickly and then farm near your team sometimes and take fights sometimes. In an ideal world, you would flash farm a specific item timing like a Dragonlance plus Yasha, then you take a fight, win the fight, get some towers, choke the enemies out, and then eventually win the game by having a massive gold lead. But that's in an ideal world. A lot of the time, you may lose a few fights here or there, but that's okay because like a TA, like a Shadow Fiend, you can just go back to farming, get some new items, and then fight around those. When you play Drow like this, it makes the fact that she gives her ranged teammates this massive amount of bonus attack speed the cherry on the top, because she is honestly extremely strong played in this playstyle, completely disregarding the fact that the aura does this. So if you play with heroes that abuse this attack speed as well, like a Nature's Prophet or a Luna, Drow is not just good, she is incredibly powerful. The way I like to explain it is basically TA, Sven, these heroes that can flash farm Ancients, they are balanced around the fact that they can do that by being weak in other points of the game. Drow has been balanced around the fact that she can't do that, but now she can, so obviously she's going to be incredibly powerful. Number 2, Dragon Knight. Dragon Knight is one of the few heroes that went relatively untouched in 7.20. All that was changed about him directly was how the splash attack works on Elder Dragon form. This was just like the change to cleave in every splash attack in the game. In particular, it now does 75% damage in a 300 AoE instead of doing a varying amount of damage in a scaling AoE. In other words, Dragon Knight does a little bit more damage to farther away targets, but a little bit less damage to close targets. Also, the splash attack on his dragon form and now considers armor. So in other words, Dragon Knight wasn't really changed all that much, especially when you compare it to something like Drow Ranger. With that being said, Dragon Knight is still one of the best mids in this patch, and arguably the most consistent mid in the patch. In fact, I would argue that this is the main reason that Dragon Knight is such a strong pick right now. It's mainly because mid currently has the largest viable hero pool, unlike carry and offlane, which have like 5 to 6 heroes that are considered extremely strong. Mid, as it stands, is usually the very flashy wildcard / cheese hero, which makes it a very scary role to pick and play against, especially considering it's a largely 1v1 lane. In this case, we can see that we have Sumail on Dragon Knight versus Rubik, and that I think that's Arteezy, but in any case, it's a very, very flashy hero that he's playing against. The thing with Dragon Knight, that's exactly what his strength is. You essentially can pick him against anything, even if you're countered by like an OD, a Monkey King, it doesn't matter. He's always going to get what he wants out of the lane and do the very potent thing that he does in every game anyway, which is be very tanky and run out all of the tier 1s and destroy them in the first 15 minutes of the game, which no matter what game of Dota you're in, I don't care, it's going to be a very, very strong tactic to be able to do that. Probably one of the most consistent things that I've gotten wrong when I'm casting is that I'll always bet against a Dragon Knight in lane and be blatantly wrong, just because it feels like this hero, it's like a boring, just sits there and tanks hero. You know, this guy's going to get so much against the Dragon Knight. He actually wins a lot of lanes that you would expect him not to win. And that's just because his innate tankiness, regen, spammable nuke, especially if you get a soul ring, as well as the fact that if he picks up a quelling blade and with the damage reduction on his breathe fire, it makes it almost impossible to deny him or zone him out. So he's at the very least always going to not lose the lane. And he's going to win a lot of seemingly unfavorable lanes as well, just because if you have a hero that's not going to lose, if you put a good player on it, they could even win the lane. The one thing in 7.20 that was a huge buff to DK is that bracers are incredibly strong on him. They make him almost unkillable in the lane, and they allow him to 5-man early and take towers, which is exactly what his playstyle was even before bracers were broken, so it's just perfect for him. Number 1, Outworld Devourer. Similar to Drow Ranger, Outworld Devourer was complete hot garbage at the start of the patch, which of course is bound to happen with some of the reworked heroes. In the buffs that OD received after becoming notorious for being garbage in both Artifact and Dota across every form of social media, he then became arguably the best mid-hero in the patch, especially once people figured out how to actually play him in the new patch with the new spells. The first huge buff to OD is the fact that his Arcane Orb can now target Ancients, and it's also AoE. And if we've learned anything from seeing Drow's rise to prominence, or TA's entire existence, it's that the ability to quickly farm Ancients in the early game allows you to flash farm much, much quicker than almost all other heroes in Dota, at least in the early game. With that being said, if OD's abilities worked in the exact way that they did in the previous patch, barring the Ancient buff, OD might still be awful, simply because he had major mana issues. He was almost unplayable. This is why Frogboy added Equilibrium, which basically makes it so OD has no mana issues whatsoever and a lot of other cool stuff. Basically, it converts a percentage of the damage, the magical damage that you do, actually pure damage works as well, spell damage, to mana. So you can basically like use Astral on a creep wave, you can turn it on and hit the enemies and get a lot of mana back from the damage that comes from your Arcane Orb. But basically, if you have Equilibrium up, you will gain mana for casting spells, which is kind of insane. An added bonus is that Equilibrium also slows enemies, so now OD actually has some sort of disable, which would probably be unheard of if you told somebody a year ago that OD would have his own slow, because usually these glass cannon heroes like OD are balanced around the fact that they don't have much disable, simply because it would be too much to do the amount of damage he does, plus also have the disable to do the damage, but now he does, just because he was totally garbage in the previous patch. On top of all of this, OD's increased base intelligence, int gain, and the fact that Yasha and Kaya is now in the game and incredibly strong makes it so that OD does way more damage than he did before, which, like I said, was already an absurd amount. But one thing I neglected to mention in the previous clip is arguably the most important reason that you should pick OD, and that's that he has a lot of sets available to him in the game of Dota 2, and I'm talking cosmetics. And you know where you can get cosmetics for Dota? Skinbaron.de. How's that for a dank-ass transition? But in any case, I was researching the site, of course, to do this promotion, and I immediately ended up using it just because it's very, very convenient. And I have a bunch of junk in my inventory from all the years of playing Dota that I don't want, but I haven't been able to sell, because if you want to sell things on the Steam community market, you have to individually go through everything and price it, and it's a giant pain in the ass. But for Skinbaron, you log in using your Steam account. I went to the top right, click sell. You go through your inventory, select what you want to sell. It will automatically price it, and you can do this slider depending on how patient you are. So if you want to buy and sell and just try to make a profit, you could use this, and then you create an offer. That's going to send you a Steam community trade offer to either your phone or your email or whatever it is. You accept that like you would with any trade offer, and then you're going to get money in your account. As for buying from Skinbaron, it's also very simple. Top left, you can select your currency, drop down in this menu and select Dota 2, maybe CSGO. I don't know, man. I'm not going to judge you. Scroll down in this list, preferably of the best deals section because it's pretty legit. And, add to cart what you want. I already have it added to my cart. Top right, go to your cart, check out, and you have the payment options section. And you just select your payment option. You pay like you would for anything else. And then you go through the Steam community trade offer system to get your item. And the crazy thing about this is that things are just literally less expensive on here than they are on the Steam community market. 20 cents on the Steam community market for this jug pants, and then it's 15 cents on Skinbaron just because of the fees that they charge on the Steam community market. So that's it for this video, guys. I do want to make a few special mentions at the end of heroes that could have made the list, but I didn't put them in here just because there aren't enough mid laners playing it for me to know that they're good and not just like a specific specialized hero for those players. But TA, Tiny, Shadow Fiend, and Rubik are heroes that I'm seeing mid laners play, but OD, Drow, and Dragonite, I'm seeing all mid laners play those heroes. So maybe in the next 2 to 3 weeks, those 4 heroes, TA, Tiny, SF, Rubik, they will be in this list once they're played more on competitive and people figure out what the right way to play them is. Once people think they're actually very, very good, it might be in this list. Thank you so much to Skinbaron for supporting us and sponsoring this video. It really, really helps out. Thanks to the Patreon boys for sponsoring us basically as well. We really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in another video.